In the previous episode of part one of the Finger Lakes region of New York State Park, I finished off the narrative with Watkins Glen State Park and the beautiful renovation of the park's entrance with the parking lot removed and the new pathway and sitting area where the gorge meets the village. Continuing on, these are some of the pictures of which I spoke about. We are back to the introduction screen, reminding viewers that this is the 100th year of the agency, that is the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historical Preservation, the centennial year of 2024. So continuing with the narrative of the Finger Lakes, the next state park is the Catherine Valley Trail, which follows an abandoned railroad and canal towpath corridors. The trail passes through a variety of wildlife habitats, and upon its completion will be 12 miles in length, stretching from the village of Horseheads to Seneca Lake at the village of Watkins Glen, from which you could take another trail to Tohannock Falls and other state parks near Seneca Lake. The Catherine Valley Trail is named after Catherine Montour, a local native figure from the 1700s. The Catherine Valley Trail is known as a natural travel corridor shaped as a valley by the last ice age, and its legacy was the vision of Ed Hoffman, an Elmira attorney who coordinated the purchase of the trail with the New York State. The next state park is Lodi Point State Marine Park, just 12 acres, acquired by the state in 1963. It has a playground, restroom, and boat dock. A Seneca orchard was destroyed here in 1779 during Sullivan's expedition through the Finger Lakes region that devastated the local native communities. So that's where there used to be a native orchard. It is named for the nearby village of Lodi, which itself is named after a picturesque mountainous village in northern Italy. Bonavista State Golf Course at 247 acres. Initially, I did not think there was much of a story to it as just a golf course overlooking Seneca Lake, but later I learned that this was the former apple orchard of the Willard Asylum for the chronically insane. Willard was one of the several asylums built in response to the campaign of Dorothea Dix, who in 1841, at age 39, began a self-funded investigation into the treatment of the insane poor, similar to what journalist Nellie Bly did at Roosevelt Island, or Welfare Island as it was known, in 19th century New York City. Dorothea Dix did in upstate New York. The asylum opened in 1869 and closed in 1995. So the asylum located just north of the Bonavista State Golf Course. Today, it's a mix of various state properties and includes an abandoned building as well, and a boulder inside the golf course in memory of Lawrence Mocha, or Mocha, Lawrence Mocha, a gravedigger who dug the graves for the patients who had died at the Willard State Asylum. The next state park is Sampson State Park. At 2,070 acres, acquired by the state in 1960, Sampson State Park includes a military museum, campground with 309 campsites, a sandy beach on Seneca Lake, boat launches, and a marina for over 100 boat slips. Prior to being a state park, this was the Sampson Naval Training Station and then the Sampson Air Force Base. Now you think, a Navy base in the Finger Lakes? Sure, why not? It is on the waterfront. So there was a Navy base here. And during World War II, when the Air Force was part of the Navy before becoming a separate agency within our armed services. After World War II, the former Sampson base briefly served as a college where veterans could study and earn a degree on the GI Bill. Afterwards, there was a debate on what should be the future of the former Sampson Naval Training Station. Should it be developed? Should it be a state park? And eventually the decision came that it should be a state park. And that's why when you go to Sampson State Park, you see there's all these streets and former barracks used as campsites where you could sleep inside a former base that's now a state park on Seneca Lake. Next one is Seneca Lake State Park, located at the northern head of Seneca Lake at 141 acres, acquired by the state in 1957. The park began as a municipal park developed by the city of Geneva in 1922, just like Geneva, Switzerland, which is located at the head of its respective lake. It has a spray playground that opened in 2002. The park also has a beach, picnic tables, biking, boat launches, fishing, and when conditions allow, for ice fishing as well. It is located next to the Cayuga-Seneca Canal that flows out of Seneca Lake. It was carved out of Seneca River and connects the Seneca Lake to Cayuga Lake and to Lake Ontario in the Erie Canal, located near a small marina at Seneca Lake State Park. Parrot Hall State Historic Site. This is a building that awaits restoration, but it's owned by the state. It was built in the 1850s for Louisa and Nehemiah Denton. It was sold in 1882 to the state of New York to establish the New York State Agricultural Experiment Station. The building housed the laboratory and offices of the station's first entomologist, Percival John Parrott, for whose name the building carries, during which time it became known as Entomology Hall. Parrott was known for his effort to combat the San Jose scale, an introduced insect that was severely damaging fruit crops in the early 20th century. The lab moved out in 1968, and then the building gradually fell into disrepair while still being owned by the state. In the summer of 2018, the Office of Parks and Recreation and Historical Preservation solicited bids for the demolition of this building. Spurred by the building's imminent demise, the nonprofit Friends of Parrott Hall formed a coalition with the Landmark Society of Western New York, Preservation League of New York State, and the City of Geneva to save Parrott Hall. For now, the building still awaits restoration, but does look like it's been repainted on the outside. This 1850s building is Parrott Hall State Historic Site, located in the city of Geneva, not far from Seneca Lake State Park. Next one is Keuka Lake State Park, 621 acres, 1961, acquired by the state at one of the smallest of the Finger Lakes, has a beach, picnic tables with pavilions, playground, hiking, hunting with permits, and fishing, as well as cross-country ski trails and snowmobile trails, boat launch and campground, located with views of the wine country of Finger Lakes. The name of this small lake, Keuka Lake, means canoe landing, or perhaps lake with an elbow in the Seneca language. And when it comes to speaking of native culture, there's also the Ganondagan Lake State Marine Park, a very small state park that doesn't even have a picnic table. It's just a boat launch and an open field with a parking lot at just 15 acres. Formerly, it was a city park named after Seneca leader Red Jacket, where Sucker Brook flows into Ganondagan Lake. Its name, Ganondagan, is, as its modern transcription is written, means the chosen spot, or perhaps the chosen town in the Seneca language. And don't feel bad for Red Jacket. There are other parks in nearby towns that carry the name of this 1800s native chieftain. This is a Ganondagan Lake State Marine Park. Sonnenberg Gardens and Mansion State Historic Site at 50 acres, acquired by the state in 2005, located in the city of Ganondagan. The property was once the summer home of Frederick Ferris Thompson, a prominent banker in New York City, and his wife, Mary Clark Thompson, whose father, Myron Holly Clark, was governor of New York in 1855. The Clark family is from Ganondagan. Clark Reservation State Park in the central region honors Mary Clark Thompson's father. Within the Sonnenberg Gardens, beautiful botanic gardens, historic mansion, greenhouse, located here in the Finger Lakes region. The Thompsons purchased the Sonnenberg property in 1863, keeping the name Sonnenberg, which means sunny hill in German. 1887, they replaced the original farmhouse with a 40-room Queen Anne-style mansion. The property also has a 100-acre farm. And Sonnenberg Gardens were designed and built between 1902 and 1919. 9 gardens, the variety of styles. And the federal government bought this property in 1931 for a veterans hospital on the adjacent farmland. The mansion was used to house the doctors' families and some nurses. By 1972, there was the Sonnenberg Bill passed by Congress, where the mansion and the grounds were transferred from the federal government to a local nonprofit, opened to the public in 1973 as a museum. And then in 2005, the state bought this property from the nonprofit, which continues to operate it. Ganondagan State Historic Site, 569 acres, acquired by the state in 1987 when it was developed as a state park, is the original site of a 17th century Seneca town. The culture, art, agriculture, and government of the Seneca people influenced our modern understanding of equality, democratic government, women's rights, ecology, and natural foods. On this site, there's a beautiful visitor center, hiking trails, and a longhouse built in the same materials and the same style as it's been before the white settlers had arrived here at Ganondagan State Historic Site. Stony Brook State Park, 568 acres, acquired by the state in 1928. Stony Brook became the summer tourist spot in the late 19th century after a railroad was built here in 1883. But the resort fell into decline by the 1920s, and so the state established the state park in 1928 to preserve it from development. Stony Brook was enhanced in the 1930s by improvements from the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration. The footprint of these government programs is evident throughout the park in its hiking trails, bridges, picnic areas, buildings. It also has camping, hiking, 2 waterfalls, and dammed streams where you could swim in the reservoirs formed by the dams at Stony Brook State Park in the town of Dansville. Harriet Hollister Spencer State Recreation Center, 1,550 acres, acquired by the state in 1962. Harriet Hollister Spencer was a Rochester horticulturist, rose expert, and civic leader. The Nature Conservancy expanded this park by an additional 350 acres in 2014, with 16 miles of hiking trails overlooking Seneca Lake, and has rare species living in the deep woods of this park on a hilltop. Harriet Hollister Spencer. Chimney Bluffs State Park, 597 acres, acquired by the state in 1963 in the town of Wolcott. Formerly a private property, it had a couple of small restaurants. The state acquired it in 1962, promising a beach, among other amenities. But it lay undeveloped until 1999 when a parking lot, service building with heated restrooms, and a picnic area with hiking trails were added. The Chimney Bluff State Park is a natural formation that overlooks Lake Ontario, but it is very much in danger of erosion, so please, no climbing the Chimney Bluffs at this state park, which borders on the Lakeshore Marshes Wildlife Management Area that's managed by the State Department of Environmental Conservation next to the state park's property at Chimney Bluffs. You can see here's a newspaper from Lakeshore News from 1962 that talks about the acquisition of this state park and the beach that was promised but never built, as well as the 2 restaurants that were here next to the Chimney Bluffs prior to it becoming a state park. Fairhaven Beach State Park in Fairhaven, also overlooking Lake Ontario. It's 1,141 acres, acquired by the state in 1928. The camp was originally built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the early 1930s, and during World War II, German POWs continued to develop this park. During its days, it was known as the prison camp at Fairhaven during World War II. The park has a beach, picnic areas, playground, ball field, campground with tents and trailer sites, boat launch, marina, 18-hole golf course, and bluffs overlooking Lake Ontario. The park also includes Sterling Pond and Sterling Creek, so you could swim in a creek near its mouth with Lake Ontario and these ocean-style beaches on the Great Lakes. The next here I want to show within Fairhaven Beach State Park, there is a historical sign that talks about Sodas Bay and 19th century attempts to turn this into a harbor and a railroad terminal, but never did become the next Rochester or the next Oswego. But there was once an industrial harbor here, as well as an amusement park near Sodas Bay and its mouth at Lake Ontario, where the state park is today. And that concludes the Finger Lakes episode. The next episode will be the Genesee region, which takes us to the Genesee River and Letchworth Gorge, Hamlin Beach State Park, a future state park that is in the works within the city of Rochester, Beechwood State Park, that's a former campsite, as well as former state parks along the Erie Canal. So look forward to sharing that video with you. Please leave a comment, thoughts, complaints. Love to read them. Thank you so much.